Chris, I knew it. I just knew it. I knew something would happen this week or next week, maybe last week, that would just set up perfectly the annual Anarchy in the Arena match at a pay-per-view that AEW wants people to pay for. I don't know. I'm being a little snarky about it, but yeah, these calendar special matches where this angle happens to happen, and then a babyface has the great idea of let's have a match where there's a ton of people involved in special stips. I mean, it's just pro wrestling, so we're not supposed to care. But I would like it to either not land on the calendar at the same time, so it just sort of felt more organic, or have Swerve just say, and this would be enough for me, hey, we know Double or Nothing's coming up. It's a tradition to have Anarchy in the Arena. We haven't had that, hasn't been booked yet. I got an idea of who should be in it. Just something that acknowledges, a little bit. I don't know. I don't think it affects ticket sales or any of that, although I would say, it's a straighten your tie moment. The more things you can do that creates an immersive, more believable, more credible environment within the narrative, the better off you are. So that you can comment on that. Also, just what you think of the post-match angle. Then we'll get into the match itself.
I'm with you on the convenience of it. I will say that this feels a little more organic than normal, simply because all of the people involved have been arguing with each other, feuding with each other, nonstop for a couple of months. Yes, it's convenient, but at least it feels like a combination of something that's been going on. The post-match was probably way better than the match itself. I thought the match itself didn't feel like a cage match for a world title in any way, shape, or form. But, anytime you have Kenny Omega and Okada in the same place, New Japan fans are going to be excited. Swerve getting involved in the title picture. You will never see me complaining about Gabe Kidd on AEW television. He is, after all, a madman, I'm there for it. I'm not going to enjoy Anarchy in the Arena because it's either going to be too bloody and violent for me to enjoy or too ridiculous and foolish for me to enjoy. There's no middle ground. That's very possible.
It'll be 50-50, 60-40.
But I understand that it is appealing to a lot of people, and it's a tradition, and I will grit my teeth and get through it.
So do you think Excalibur was honest when he didn't know who Gabe Kidd was until the hood was pulled down? Like, do you think he didn't recognize his like, I would have rather had Excalibur go, I think I know who that is, but I don't want to cast allegations until we really see, like just something like that, like playing dumb when you're Excalibur. I could imagine Tony Schiavone saying that would have worked. Chris?
At the risk of having to give away my Gabe Kidd fan club presidency membership, I didn't recognize him at all to start with. I thought it was Bryan Danielson. I'm like, what the heck?
That was my first thought, actually, too. And then I looked a little closer. And
I realized. But at first glance, it wasn't obvious. And we'd like to believe they only have access to the monitors. The ring is blocking him from full view, to be fair. So
I admit it's a little picky. I just look for opportunities everywhere to clean this stuff up. Like, just think about it, because there's so much stuff that, they set the table for criticism when Hangman and Osprey just happen to have all these like moments of mishaps that can lead to inconvenience. It's just, there's so many tired tropes in wrestling, and you can see them coming. And I just want a slightly more sophisticated, higher IQ execution of some of these things. I just think it's respectful of the audience. Zack Barber, who, by the way, I complimented so much on everything with Rich and Wade today for VIP members, really put you over, Zach. Here you are with a super chat, so thank you for that. But here you are complaining about our criticism, saying, serious question, did you ever have this much of a problem with an annual match back when WCW did War Games? I promise you that if they said, I have an idea, let's do a War Games, when everyone knew it was coming up and there was some convenient thing, for sure, go back, read the back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. I've covered just about every War Games there has ever been. And I think there's a more organic way to do it, which is just acknowledge it's coming up and speculate on who's going to be part of it, as opposed to the insult to our intelligence that, look at this, there's 5 of us and 5 of you. Hey, how about we have this match that everyone circled on their calendar and was coming up? I'm not saying it's a huge deal. I'm saying it's tweakable. If it's not tweakable, I'll live with it. If it's tweakable, then I'm going to point out, like, let's improve a little bit. Chris, I led with it, but it's not like I'm, angry and outraged about it. I just don't think it's like kickouts, interference, breaking up pins in matches. I just don't think anyone was thinking about it. That's just the way it's done. And then you kind of draw some attention to it, and all of a sudden, oh, that was really easy to clean up. Let's actually knock people off the pin, and let's have the person underneath then use that freedom to lift their shoulder instead of the stupid way it's been done for years when people got lazy about it. That's all. Just clean it up.
The way I look at this stuff is if we're sitting here and that's one of the things we're leading with as a nitpick on the show, there's a very good chance we kind of enjoyed the show. But nobody tunes in to watch us sit here and praise the show for 3 hours straight. Like, there's stuff that can be improved. This is a minor thing that for some people does take you out of the moment, does damage your immersion in the world they're trying to create. It is not the end of the world. It's frustrating. It is cheesy as heck. Yeah. I thought the Hangman and Osprey segment was far worse on that regard. But yeah, for this, like, this is way less offensive than it has been in the past. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. We've been through some really, really much worse booking executions than this. And really, if it's nice that can, I just want to move on for the most part here, but like, it's nice that that it feels like this is a product that's clicking right now that's worth protecting. And I want to protect. I feel like they can protect themselves from a casual fan tuning in or a nitpicky fan tuning in and going, wait a second, clean this up a little bit. There was a spot earlier. I made a note of it in my report where someone pulled somebody into the path of I think it was in the tag match, pulled someone into the path of someone diving over the ring, like held them in position, like it, instead of, because there are like a couple instances where wrestlers in the women's match, the main event, are just standing there waiting to be landed on. And again, Joe had his answer to that, which is step out of the way and draw attention to the ridiculousness of it. So I just, people work so hard to make wrestling moves look real. So let's work harder to execute a few spots. But I'm going to move on because I ring that bell a lot. But those are the examples in tonight's show. And by the way, Zach said, by the way, I actually agree. Zack Barber, who did the super chat question, said, I agree with you, Wade. Doing a match because it's that time of calendar drives me nuts generally. War Games is the exception.
Royal Rumble is the exception, right? To me, like, that's the same time every year. But
everyone's going to be in it. You don't need an angle. That's my issue, is you don't need an angle to say we're going to have a Royal Rumble. There's going to be qualifying matches or some mysterious person in the back is going to pick who's in it. My issue is that happy accident of 5 people brawling with 5 people after a cage match, and it's bloody and it's violent, and I know how to solve it. How convenient. It's that kind of time of year. I just think that stuff can be cleaned up.
You complained about Hell in a Cell when that was a thing at the same time every year.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. Yep. Oh, for sure.
Equal opportunity.
Yes. I'm not. If you think I'm being like overly critical to AEW, you're not paying attention to my track record or the fact that I think AEW is better these days than WWE booking wise. I think it's a recent shift, but I think it is. Larry from the VDB says, small detail. I love, this is what I was referencing. I love during the opening tag team when Alexander held on to Paige and Osprey while Takeshita ran the ropes and prepared his dive. Less stupid looking than guys waiting slack-jawed. It's exactly the spot. Great minds think alike. Thank you, Larry. And I know I kind of ruined it for people in a way because they're like, I didn't pay attention to that stuff, but like I got used to it. Well, yeah, you watch it enough, you get used to it. But what about the new viewer? What about the one who wants it to not seem cheesy? Clean it up for them too and make the whole thing more immersive. Yeah, Zack Barber pointed it out too, that Alexander pulled Osprey and Hangman into Takeshita's path. So it's good. So let's talk about Gabe Kidd for a while. I know you won't disagree with that, Chris. Zachman86, welcome to the chat, Zach. Gabe Kidd going full madman in AEW is everything I need in life. Chris, you're perfect to have on tonight. What should we expect from Gabe Kidd, and what will satisfy you and what will disappoint you in terms of immediate future use of him?
Light the blue touch paper and stand well back, folks. I am a massive Gabe Kidd fan. He is basically the epitome of strong style. He hits very hard. He is a brutal competitor. He likes naked headbutts, which I'm hoping he lays off on a bit. Just unprotected straight shots to the head with his own head. It's just double concussions waiting to happen. But he's a good little promo if he can avoid swearing on the air. He's incredibly energetic and charismatic.
That's a lot to ask.
Well, in his case, it is.
No, I know. I mean that seriously. That's a lot to ask. It's like Anthony. I won't even. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know where you were about to go, and it's tempting fate.
I don't want to do that tonight.
Yeah. The one thing you will quickly learn is that he is a madman, and he will repeatedly tell you that's kind of become his catchphrase. He's just one of the most promising talents at New Japan right now. I imagine he's here because of the fact that New Japan is currently in the Best of the Super Juniors mode. And for the next month or so, it's going to be a huge focus on the junior heavyweight division. So a lot of the heavyweights won't have much to do. I don't like the pairing with the Death Riders so much. They just had an 8-man tag with the Bucks and the Good Brothers against Gabe Kidd, David Finlay, and their unit in New Japan of America, and that match ended with some tension between those 8 men. So for him to come in and seemingly tangentially side with the War Dog, with the Young Bucks, feels a little weird. I don't know if that'll get explained down the road.
Yeah.
But I would love to see him have some matches with people like Samoa Joe, like Shibata.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, yeah.
That's the sort of style that he excels at, and he's just a hard hitter who will make you believe that everything he does hurts like all Dickens.
Zachman said, I do feel like Gabe is being paid off by the Bucks. I like Gabe Kidd. It's nice when somebody loses a world title match, although Joe should get a rematch based on the way this ended. I like the idea of having something ready for the loser to do afterwards. And what Gabe Kidd can set up a Gabe Kidd Joe series or feud, or one-off match. And obviously they can face each other in Anarchy in the Arena too. But yeah, Fanblast said, overbooking is the biggest epidemic in mainstream pro wrestling today. Do they not have faith in just winners and losers? And with Gabe Kidd, like interjecting him into this, there's a lot of possibilities. So I'm not saying him coming out as overbooked. I mean, that's a surprise. It leads to conversation and speculation. It's a big moment. You're immediately establishing he's in the mix with main event guys. Like if Rusev in WWE had shown up and was part of everything going on with Punk and Seth and or Jey Uso, or, whatever, like you'd be like, oh, he's a top guy. But he's not. So you don't think that. With Gabe, you've established that for the uninitiated or the people who love him and are worried he might just be, not treated at a top level. So that's the positive. The negative is he is just sort of blending in as a guy who, let's just tell you what a big deal he is or what a big deal he can be. But you haven't really told people about him. They don't have, like, the big chunk of the audience who don't have a real strongly formed opinion of him or a lot of backstory on him, who frankly aren't going to do their research. They're just watching a couple hours a week and moving on with their life. You got to do some work. And so I hope that they do. I hope people within a few weeks have an idea of what he is about from something other than me throwing to you, Chris, for 3 minutes of explanation. Yeah.
I think the way you do that is either on Collision or next week, you feed someone to him. Kevin Knight would be perfect if he wasn't in Japan right now. I don't think you want to do it with Speedball. So there aren't a lot of great choices. Maybe you do like a Daddy Magic or somebody like that. Just someone who can easily eat a defeat, but also just get the living daylights beaten out of them in short shock and just show us exactly how dangerous Gabe Kidd can be. That would be a really good way to sort of give you an idea, and then use some video clips. Like New Japan will let you use the video, and there's a lot of it. Just don't show any of his promos.
Yeah. All right, let's pause and introduce ourselves, and then there's some chat comments I want to respond to about our Block A here topics coming out of the main event. Want to talk more, too, just about the main event itself, like not just the post-match angle. You touched on it a little bit, Chris. This is a Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show on Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com. You can read my live TV and pay-per-view and PLE coverage at PWTorch.com or our ad-free version with bonus content for our VIP members, PWTorchVIP.com. For information on VIP membership, which includes the commercial-free versions of our many free shows throughout the week, along with VIP exclusive shows, a whole array of them, along with on-demand access to our full library, 20-plus years of post-pay-per-view roundtables, Wade Keller hotlines, Bruce Mitchell audio shows, great 4-part series on the Four Horsemen DVD from 18 years ago. We just republished on our VIP podcast feed in the VIP Vault section. So much great content. Check out details and sign-up options at pwtorch.com/govip. That's pwtorch.com/govip. The podcast, depending on how you sign up, are compatible with Spotify. They're also compatible in a couple of ways with Apple Podcasts, therefore Apple CarPlay, or on your iPhone, and really any other iOS or Android app, or you can just stream it directly from our VIP website. pwtorch.com/govip. Unmatched archives dating back to the late 1980s with contemporaneous insider coverage, including a real-time walk through the rise of Sabu as a standout, distinct indie star, and then a centerpiece of early ECW that really put them on the map. All the controversies with him and Paul Heyman, all the star ratings and analysis of his ups and downs and standout moments as a performer. One of the cool parts about VIP membership is you're not reading online. You can go read a Wikipedia page, but it's all in retrospect. With the back issues of the Torch, you kind of march through it. You get to see what we said at the time without the benefit of what happened later. And I think there's the contemporaneous coverage has some surprises in it. Where like, oh, this, just wait until I don't know, Chuck Palumbo becomes wrestling's biggest star. So I mean, I didn't say that, but
Wayne Bloom, right?
Yeah, Wayne Bloom was my guy for a while. Yeah, the old early '90s ESPN tapings. I was like, he could be something. Well, whatever. Missed opportunity, promoters. So yeah, it's the PWTorch 90s Passcast crew gave me a hard time about that when they were covering those back issues. So yeah, lots of cool stuff, and we love your support. We're a small business, and frankly, we can't do this if we don't have the VIP members. So I wouldn't say it's your responsibility. I'm not guilting you if you can't afford it or you don't have time, but we do appreciate your support. And if you do like our tone and how we cover things, I think we give you a lot in return for your membership and have different pricing options for different tiers. So check it out, pwtorch.com/govip. So my guest host today covering Dynamite is Chris Lansdell. He is a contributor to PWTorch in various ways, including some excellent coverage of recent New Japan shows on pwtorch.com. So check out the Japan results section. Also, the 7-star podcast. You can do better. You could do 8. I mean, I've been we every time I'm like, what should I give it with the graphic? And every time I'm stuck at 7. One of these days, you and Kelly will impress me enough to get 8. But yeah, so that's one of the VIP exclusive features. Chris, welcome. Good to see you and talk to you again.
Yeah, good to be here. A lot of wrestling going on right now. I watched 4 hours of it this morning and 2 hours tonight, and another 4 hours coming up in about 5 hours time. So
awesome.
I am committed. Yeah, this was a fun show, but there's a few things I'm gonna have to nitpick on, and it's good to be here to chat about wrestling.
So you are a little more glammed up than normal. You got the backdrop, you got the jacket. Do you have an explanation?
I mean, I have several I could come up with. I'm actually my wife made this for me to put across the back when I'm hosting these things, and the behind that is an absolute mess of Magic the Gathering cards, which nobody needs to see right now. So, but this is just also I'm testing an outfit for a burlesque festival I'm hosting in a couple of weeks. So yeah, we're multitasking tonight.
Love it. Hope it fits well and the test run is successful. Let's see. If you want to participate in tonight's show, chat. If you're watching us live, if you're not watching us live, you can always find us. Just go to YouTube, search PWTorch, subscribe, set the little bell to give you alarms when we go live. We're live after Raw, Dynamite, SmackDown, sometimes after Collision, almost always after pay-per-views and PLEs. That's most of our live YouTube content that I'm part of. And then Frank Pettiani has Pro Wrestling Then and Now with live and then available on demand later. In-depth recaps of major shows in the past, WWE, WCW, ECW, and more. So subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't yet. And of course, like this show and comment. Any comment helps the algorithm. It says, hey, listeners are engaged and they're paying attention. And sometimes there's some fun discussions going on in the comments area. So that's one way to be part of things. The other way is to subscribe to our podcast. And that's what most of you do. You listen to us on the podcast side of things, on your podcast app, on your iPhone or Android device, or you stream it from our website. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app to subscribe. This is a red logo show, our post shows. When you search Wade Keller, you'll also see the blue logo pop up. That's a podcast only, audio only, not part of YouTube feed that includes our weekly flagship. And yesterday, Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net joined me, and we talked about a wide array of topics, and I encourage you to subscribe and download that if you haven't yet. Every Tuesday, we have a flagship with a rotation of hosts. Jason Powell every 3 weeks has joined me since we started doing the flagship. And on our feeds, we are running 15 years ago flashbacks to our earliest free live podcast, the PWTorch Daily Cast, with live callers. And we're digesting right now the end of the brief Monday night battle part 2. We're not supposed to call it the second Monday Night War. And TNA kind of waving the white flag, and we're digesting that, but you can march through that on the feed too. I get so caught up listening to those old shows and like, oh, that was an interesting take on what was going on back then.
There was I believe it was January 4th that started one year, and
Yep.
WWE counted by having Brett and Shawn on the same show.
Yeah.
I think that was that one, and then TNA had Jeff Hardy show up and dangle from the top of a cage. I think that was a crazy.
It was wild.
Time.
Yeah,
I was covering wrestling for a different site at that point, so I was right there with you.
Yeah, and I mean, reliving our analysis of like, why did TNA do that? They could have had momentum, and then it's this terribly booked show with bad choices, and should they have stuck it out? And are they in trouble moving back? And I don't know. So yeah, it's cool stuff. So yeah, subscribe. Speaking of the Daily Cast, you can search PWTorch on your podcast app also, and that will bring up our colorful Daily Cast logo. And so we have different shows each day of the week covering different topics, such as acknowledging WWE, the All Elite Conversation Club, which I had mentioned, the PWTorch 90s Past Cast, Wrestling Coast to Coast with Chris Maitland, who often co-hosts with me here on the post show, and on. So just check it out if you haven't yet. Just search Wade Keller and PWTorch on your podcast app to subscribe. Oh, and if you want to be a video caller, if you're a Patreon supporter or VIP member, look for the link on our Patreon page or in my TV report on Dynamite at PWTorchVIP.com. That'll have a link for you to be a video caller. And then the other option is just email us. You can do that even if you don't watch us live. If you want to be part of the show, WadeKellerPodcast@gmail.com. All right, so Chris, let's get back to Dynamite. We've got lots of chats to get to. I want to ask first, you had mentioned earlier match quality, and I thought it was a little bit of a letdown. I mean, I thought it was decent. You know, it was hard hitting. Joe beats up Mox for a while. Mox makes a comeback. They hit some key moves. Lots of blood. But it did feel like a match that existed ultimately in the end to be just a setup for the post-match angle. Larry mentioned in the chat, cage matches felt like an excuse for a huge, contrived schmaz to set up anarchy in the arena, and I felt bad for Joe. Your thought, expand on your thoughts on the cage match, highs, good and bad, and also, do you agree with Larry?
To a degree, yeah. It's always annoying when you take a match like a cage match, which used to be like the be-all, end-all to end a massive blood feud, and you just throw it on free TV, give it 10 minutes, and then act surprised when people don't like it. I believe that all of the really cage match stuff, like the stuff that you would not see in a normal match, happened in picture-in-picture. So some people didn't even get to see it. Moxley's cut had, I believe, happened during an ad break for most people. So if you're going to do this sort of a match, and if you're going to have Moxley bleed, which heaven says he's never done that on TV before, if you're going to do that, you don't do it when nobody can see it. And it made the match just kind of feel normal and not special at all. This was a themed episode with a world title match with somebody who has made Moxley go to sleep a couple of weeks in a row, and it just didn't feel like anything at all.
Some other chat comments that are notable. Let's see. Oh, well, compliment for you. I don't want to miss this chance. Dougie Doug said, I enjoyed your New Japan primers, Chris. I printed them out to read them at the gym. I should plug that. We're gonna create a sidebar, a place for that on the VIP site, probably the free site too, a sidebar that just has the 4 parts. We still have to publish part 4, which I'll probably do tomorrow or Friday, in the series. But the first 3 parts are posted. Just a great overview and introduction to New Japan, and it just can be a reference point not only for you, but anybody you're trying to get into New Japan, and you don't want to spend 2 hours explaining everything to them and worry if they remember or paying attention. Just send them to pwtorch.com and check it out. It's in the opinion and special feature section right now, but we'll have that on the sidebar on the article pages also as a way for people to reference them, because I think it's evergreen enough, even if you did kind of focus on the current lay of the land.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to write. I think especially the first piece, talking about how the company is laid out.
For sure. That's very evergreen.
And I tried to talk about some of the things that make it special. The company is difficult to watch. It seems impenetrable when you first watch because of the fact that the majority of stuff happens in Japanese. But ultimately, if somebody just sits down and gives you a couple of minutes and tells you, I think it's going to be enjoyable for a lot of people. And you'll get to see who these people actually are when they show up on Dynamite, because goodness knows they ain't going to tell you.
Number of people in the chat wishing AEW did a better job. Derek Mitchell says, AEW needs to actively educate the audience each week with video packages and recaps for new viewers or even returning fans. It just can't be for sickos. You have to cater to potential new fans. Andrew WR says, I think AEW needs to introduce characters better. So it's not just nitpicking. I mean, there's people who watch Dynamite. They know they're watching a show like this. They know quite a bit, but you can watch a show like this and not know everything. And, obviously it'd be better. It's just a constant thing for AEW. And it just, I don't know. I mean, it goes to Tony Khan. I mean, Tony Khan's playing to one collective audience that is the echo chamber of social media and the sickos. And he's, outright saying we book for the sickos. And it can mean, obviously in the culture now, that means just people are super hardcore into something. But with AEW, it takes on a different connotation too, when there's blood and violence and all that. So it kind of has a double meaning. It's up for interpretation. But either way, he's saying we book for them. But I wish part 2, or in parentheses underneath, it said, but we welcome everyone. Todd Gordon, speaking of Sabu and ECW, when ECW launched, Todd Gordon's motto was ECW, it's not for everyone. And that was, for very early on, a way to differentiate themselves, going, it's not mainstream. But eventually it became limiting, and you want to make it seem like you're inviting you're rolling the red carpet out, of at least a welcome mat for everybody to join in. I'm kind of bouncing over the place here. I want to get back to the cage match in a second. Well, no, let's stick with that. I was going to talk about the Sabu Tribute and Task because we have some nice chat room comments on that, but we'll go back to that. I don't want to get too off base on the main event. One other thing stood out to me. Other people in the chat have pointed out too. There was a forced rope break during the cage match, and I thought, who was it? Mox or Joe that reached the rope? They both ended up.
Mox that reached the rope.
Mox reached the rope. So had Joe not broken before a 5 count, we are to believe that the ref would have called for a DQ and ended the cage match. So that gets established. And this is a sloppiness that I think chips away at it, it just feels silly and, not detail oriented. But then later you can slip a briefcase into the ring, and that leads to the finish, and right in front of the ref. Here's a foreign object introduced into the match. So is it an anything goes match or not? Or is it the exception rope breaks? And if you do that, are we really to believe? It's like giving a 6 foul to a star in the NBA in the third quarter of a pivotal game. The ref's going to, really try to not let that happen. I don't know. It's like they're not going to do that. So why even introduce that? Just don't do rope breaks. Chris, you're nodding along with me, you're shaking your head.
This is why Draymond Green gets a technical in the first 5 minutes of every match, because he knows they're not going to give him a second one, so he can push the line.
Yeah.
The first thing I wrote down for that match was rope breaks in a cage match. I did hear that apparently that's been the norm in AEW.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it make sense. Like you said, what do they do if he doesn't break? Are you going to DQ him? We just watched him slam a guy's face into a cage. That's a DQ in any other match. So, but they also did a rope break in the Fatal 4-Way with Toni Storm. She got to the ropes. Now, she did continue rolling out of the ring while she was in the figure 4, which broke the hold because of the inability to hang on to it. Mm-hmm. But it looked like they were trying to break it for the ropes as well. So I don't think they know what they're doing from time to time.
Yes. By the way, well, now I'm going to stray a little bit again, but it applies. The rules to even the Eliminator matches. Jason Powell and I talked about it yesterday briefly. Rich Fan and I longer on everything today, maybe too long. But I like Excalibur had a comment today, which is Toni Storm doesn't even need to be involved in the finish of this match in the outcome. And I was thinking, and I didn't go back and re-listen to it and rewind, but so what? Isn't it better to not get pinned by the person who's going to be your challenger and have someone else get pinned to determine who your challenger is going to be? Or if Tony's not pinned, then does it not count? Do you not get a title shot unless Tony's pinned? But either way, it doesn't seem like it's a bad thing for Toni Storm if she's not involved in the finish, because she's either not taking the pin or she gets to push off who her challenger is even longer. And do we want to think that's Toni Storm's goal, is to have no challengers? So the whole, again, I don't think, and there's occasions I'm wrong and they do a better job explaining it than I give them credit for, but certainly the pattern is there and they haven't earned my benefit of the doubt here, Chris. It doesn't make sense, and I just want stuff to make sense.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, why is Tony, because the way it's been explained, Tony Storm wants these 4-way eliminator matches. She's looking for people to compete with. That doesn't make sense even for a face champion. Why would you go and do that when you know you have a title match coming up against either Hayter or Monet? That's set in stone. Neither one of those is going to be a walk in the park. So why is she looking for this extra? Like, that's 2 weeks in a row she's had a 4-way. Doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Yeah. And just, Rich and I went in, but just explain the rules better. I mean, just really be clear. Like, this is how it works, and it should hold up to that scrutiny. Don West was great in TNA when the booking was sloppy because he couldn't hold back. He's just like, wait, I don't get this. Like, he had all these complicated rules to explain, but then something would happen in the match. He's like, shouldn't that be a DQ? Or like, it would just, and I love that Don West, like, the late great Don West just had no filter and just couldn't help but react as a fan. It just blurted out. That doesn't make sense. And I actually like the notion of a booker being held accountable to a like sort of dispassionate, objective, impulsive, unfiltered critique of logic. It's easy to clean this stuff up. So, just tell your announcer, call us out. If like you see WWE do that a lot, like, oh, that move didn't land entirely. It didn't hit entirely. Or, boy, I think the ref blew that. I think that was a 3 count. Corey Graves will do that. Like, announcers want their credibility when there's mistakes made in the ring. I think like they should want their credibility when the booking mistakes are made too.
Michael Cole has been really bad for not doing that recently, so I don't know if the timing on that particular call out is the best.
Yeah, but it's other people who are doing it more than him.
But bear in mind, part of the reason Jim Ross isn't on commentary anymore is for doing exactly what you're talking about. Like, he would just get ornery, especially at the tag matches. And the older I get, the more I find myself agreeing with him. But the commentators trying to cover up for stuff can be comical at times, and I can almost hear Taz boiling in the background because you can tell if anybody wants to just call it out, it would be Taz, and I feel like he's being told not to.
And Jim Ross did for a while, like, oh, who's a legal man? Like, who's a legal man in these Bucks matches? He couldn't help himself, and other things too. So, okay, I want to get to other stuff. By the way, Dougie Doug says Gabe Kidd should wreck one of the Dark Order guys. Andrew WR says, my son just asked, is Gabe Kidd that guy with one leg? Oh, well. Yeah. So, by the way, thanks to Efren for his super chat. He just says, yay, PWTorch, dropping in to drop $9.99. Efren, appreciate it very much. Super chats, of course, get our attention, and will be featured, barring it being completely irrelevant. But if you just want to say yay, that's good enough for us. Chris, let's talk about the Sabu tribute a little bit. I want to get some thoughts from you on Sabu also here. Zachman86 said, I thought the Sabu tribute tonight was super classy. Thought WWE did a good job. I think AEW topped it. They played his music. They did a photo collage with some vintage photo, including Taz with tons of hair. That's when I first met Taz back at an indie show back in the day, pre-ECW. I remember that haircut. And then Taz just gave a speech about Sabu. Dennis Decline says, Taz made me damn near cry tonight. Great speech for his friend. Taz took off his glasses, his chin quivering, voice cracking. King of Strong Style says, yeah, Taz was awesome. Dougie Doug said, I enjoyed the Sabu stories with Jason Powell on the flagship yesterday, Wade. So yeah, thank you, Dougie Doug. Yeah, so lots of gave just some personal stories that I had with Sabu over the years because I knew him before his even his ECW days. And just obviously sad. 60's too young. I've been texting with people who knew him, telling me, fun stories and sad stories too, heartbreaking stories about, his latest years and how hard he took losing his wife, which is understandable. Got the anecdotes about his old Extreme Winnebago and, things that went on inside and outside that thing. Walking his dog that we brought with him. So yeah, it's sad. But I thought tonight, with and the announcers all pointing to the sky like Sabu would do, was like a really cool touch too. That the opening scene of Dynamite, they showed the crowd, but one fan held up a sign that said "R.I.P. Sabu." So I thought they did a really nice job. Talk about that, and also your thoughts on Sabu.
It is a tight line to walk, and I think they walked it perfectly tonight. Yeah. I'd like to think they did it because they thought it was the right thing to do, and not to one up WWE. But I'm a huge advocate for men's mental health, and having somebody like Taz with the reputation he has and the aura he puts across, just openly in touch with his feelings on national television, I thought was even more moving, because you would never expect Taz to cry on TV. And the fact that he was able to do that hopefully tells people, you know what? We're human. We're allowed to cry. We're allowed to show that emotion. I thought it was a beautiful, touching tribute to a guy that doesn't get doesn't get the thanks that he deserves for revolutionizing wrestling in North America, which, you know, that sort of phrase is thrown about, but honestly,
elaborate. Yeah. What did he do to revolutionize it? I mean, I've talked about it this week. I want to get your take.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about a guy here who was like throwing chairs at people and putting people through tables and putting himself through tables, and just reckless disregard for his own safety to make a move look fantastic. You know, you could argue that people have taken it to an extreme now, and no pun intended, and that it's gone too far. But we wouldn't even have some of the stuff we have. You know, at the time that Sabu was doing this stuff, Shawn Michaels and his super kick was spectacular. A moonsault was something you never saw in North America.
Great Muta doing a handspring back elbow was like, holy shit. It was like the biggest thing in wrestling was a handspring elbow. No, we had seen Jushin Liger, the Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith on Saturday Night's Main Events, opened my eyes to the Japanese junior heavyweight style. That was so influential in my love of a different style, because I grew up watching the High Flyers, Jim Brunzell and Greg Gagne, and their high-flying move was a mediocre dropkick from Greg Gagne. There's a lot I love about Greg Gagne, but he had a mediocre dropkick, and Jim Brunzell with a fantastic Lance Storm-esque dropkick. That's all they did. They never climbed the ropes, but they were the high flyers because of dropkicks.
Kevin Von Erich's turnaround crossbody from the middle rope blew people's minds.
Yeah, so it's all context.
And changed the game again, but Sabu not only did more things, but he did them with props. Like, he would put a chair in the ring and leap off it. That inspired the Hardy Boys with their poetry in motion. We see Mark Briscoe doing it all the time now too.
Yep.
Like, using a chair as a vault is just a common move now. Putting people through tables. Like, Sabu was doing that before anybody knew what a Dudley Boy was.
Yep.
And people, it's never really been my style of wrestling. It's not something I terribly enjoy, but I can appreciate how revolutionary a lot of it was. And Paul Heyman, quite frankly, a lot of what's happening in North American wrestling is thanks to what Paul Heyman put on our TVs, and Sabu was a huge part of that. I mean, do we have Taz? Do we have Rob Van Dam, Sam Mann, Tommy Dreamer, if there isn't a Sabu as well?
I've been talking about this all week. One of the only photos on my wall, did a lot of ringside photography for years and years, late 80s and on. And one of my photos in my office wall is this one, which is hard to avoid. There it is. Sean Waltman at the American Indian Center in Minneapolis leaping at Sabu at ringside. And that was one of I don't know if it was the first or second time I saw Sabu in person, but just a amazing person to watch in person. Yeah, ultimately it wasn't my favorite style of wrestling, but it didn't change that he was an innovator. And I wrote an article calling him wrestling's hottest free agent. And I didn't mean that he was most in demand. I meant that he was like the hottest in terms of trend setting and eye-opening and jaw-dropping, and he should land on the radar of promoters. He was unconventional. I was discussing this with a wrestler earlier tonight on text about, was he ahead of his time, or would he have been better in the 80s or 70s? Because there was an old school aspect to him because of his uncle, the original Sheik, really instilling in him a certain kayfabe and old school style. But then my answer to that is, in a way he would have, but the wrestlers of that day would have stopped him from doing some of the things that made him stand out. And so one of the reasons that I think he was a trendsetter for the future is he wasn't big, and he redefined that a junior heavyweight doesn't have to be a masked Japanese wrestler or a Dynamite Kid. You could have more than just being a great athlete. He was a junior heavyweight by traditional standards, size-wise and style-wise, but you can also have a more traditional, timeless gimmick of being, and I don't even know how to describe Saboo Foley, but this sort of mysterious character who had a hardcore edge to him. So he was violent and had scars all over his body that showed his wounds of war from barbed wire cage matches. So he redefined the idea that a junior heavyweight had to be flashy and sleek and a pretty boy. And then in ECW, it didn't matter because most of the wrestlers there were undersized. I mean, 911 was a giant, and Mike Awesome was a giant in their context, and they weren't even above average size, or sort of average size height-wise in pro wrestling of that era. So, so that's part of it too for me. Is like he caused people to look at that type of wrestler and realize they could have a different kind of persona and aura to them. And Taz used that word, aura.
Yeah, and that's something else I wanted to touch on. I mean, I don't want to just regurgitate what Taz said, but at the time that Sabu was at the peak of his powers, the biggest names in wrestling had a defined gimmick, but most of all, they were good on the mic. You're looking at your Stone Colds and your Ric Flairs and your Hogans and your Rocks. Sabu never spoke, but when he entered an arena, you knew every eye wanted to be on him.
Yep.
And you followed him to the ring. Even if you had never seen him wrestle before, the lights come out, the music hits, he comes up and he strikes that pose, and this guy is something, and I need to watch him.
Yeah.
And that presentation should be studied for anybody as a wrestler who's struggling to find a way to make themselves watchable. I talk about this in my classes as well. When you are on a stage, you need to have the audience's eyes on you and following what you want them to follow. And he nailed that every single time. He made you watch exactly what he wanted you to watch, whether it was a chair being thrown into someone's face or whether it was him throwing himself through a table. Your eyes were never leaving him because you didn't want to risk missing something.
Yeah. All right, very good. We'll shift back. Well, a couple comments, and then we'll shift to some other content. Zack Barber said, Greg Gagne's mediocre dropkick should have been the official name of the move. Greg was great. Steve Austin and I, on I think it was on his podcast, we just marveled at Greg Gagne's firing up in his comebacks as a babyface. Like he is, talk about studying wrestlers and what they do. Like vintage Greg Gagne, early 80s, actually he's probably best in the late 70s, but I didn't catch much of that. And there's not a lot of footage, but the stuff you can see of him against Jesse Ventura and Adrian Adonis and like the firing up that he did was great. But as an athlete, physique wise, like didn't pass. He was the son of the promoter. He had the son of the promoter. Look, he was the Nepo baby before that was a thing. Zack Barber regarding Sabu said, the word you're looking for, Wade, is madman. Sabu was a madman in the best way possible. Okay, so let's jump to let's talk about Ricochet and Zach Gowen, Chris. They recapped the angle on Collision, so credit to them for that. You never know. It just happened last weekend, and then the match is announced on social media. There was a lot of heavy lifting the announcers had to do to kind of orient people to his backstory, but I thought they did that well enough. I would have rather had a little bit more time go by so that it could be built up a little more. But in the end, it was a novelty match, and I thought it was acceptable. What do you think?
Why did we do this?
There is that. You okay?
What did this serve? Like, what was the point of this? This is a quote from the start of the match. Coming to the ring with the aid of crutches, that is because Ricochet did steal his prosthetic leg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What? What are we doing? Like, they haven't signed Zach Gowen, I hope. He's from Detroit. He's not from Chicago. I don't get who this is for. Mm-hmm. Zach Gowen has an amazing story. He had his moment in the spotlight. I have no problem bringing him in. I had no problem with the angle on Collision. But to do the match, to have Ricochet struggle to beat someone who, as far as we know, hasn't wrestled in 20 years, and then to do a whole gimmick around a prosthetic leg that was uncomfortable 20 years ago, to lead to what? A feud between Ricochet and Mark Briscoe?
I mean, Zack Barber says it was just a way to make Ricochet look like a jerk. And that was a purpose. It's a novelty match. Got access to him. Ricochet's a jerk. Mark Briscoe runs out, saves him, and it sets up the match. I mean, it is out of nowhere. It took 10 minutes of TV time or less. It's not a big issue for me.
I don't know. I mean, obviously Zach Gowen is okay with his leg being used like this in angles and stuff. He's done it before. It just felt really uncomfortable and unpleasant to me, and I could have done without it, honestly.
Sure. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm. You can do without it, but you're not. I mean, it sounds like it's more than you could do without it. You like would have vociferously voted against it.
Yeah. So unlike some people within the internet community of wrestling fans, I can appreciate that there's going to be stuff on a show that isn't for me that is still okay and acceptable and enjoyable for others. I don't know who enjoyed this, honestly. Yeah, there's going to be some people who say, it was whatever. But did anybody actually look at this segment and go, oh, that made the show better?
Well, I think people watched the segment and thought Ricochet's a jerk, and I can't wait to see Mark Briscoe, this two-legged badass who's a full-time wrestler, make him pay for stealing a prosthetic leg and being, a bully and a jerk. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was there for. Ramen Noodle says, yeah, this was fine. Nice payday for Zach Gowen. So what? Rico beat him pretty definitively in the end. I mean, I don't think nice payday is a justification for putting something on national television. Although it is a true statement, it probably was a nice payday for him. You can also pay someone to not be on TV if you want to give them a nice payday and not make listeners or viewers watch it. If you just want somebody to have a payday, that should not be the litmus test for whether they make it onto television.
I'll take a nice payday to go lose to Ricochet in 10 minutes. I don't mind.
Andrew WR said Ricochet going through a commercial break with a one-legged 50-year-old who hasn't been on TV in 20 years was good. Well, he's 42. His kids are cute. It's like he's like dad fighting this bully.
So cute.
I mean, I don't know. It's a nice little feel-good story in that sense.
He's 42. Oh my god! How am I older than Zach Gowen?
He started young. He was a young punk. He was a young punk, and he told me when I interviewed him, explained, yeah, I'm ashamed. I deserved all the locker room heat I had. He wasn't great. Great comment from Fanbless. I don't want this to pass this. Imagine Sabu in 2025 having to talk on Axe about how he developed his character and writing angles. Yeah, he was old school. But Ricochet is, setting aside the second, Ricochet is succeeding as a heel character, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. To start with, I really enjoyed the cold, white shirt covered in blood, Hitman-esque video game type character. I thought that was the way they were going to go, and I was excited for it. Then they turned him into a cowardly heel, and I was all out again. But he's really made it work, and he's got this sort of unjustifiably cocky attitude. He is a bully, as they called him on commentary tonight, but he does do a good job of selling what he's trying to do, and I enjoyed the heck out of most of what he's done. I still think they would have been better off going with the cold-blooded hitman type character. That would have been really fun to see, but this is working, so why complain?
A couple other comments. Dougie Doug said, I liked it. It was a good way to get Ricochet heat on a non-contracted wrestler. Let's see. King of Strong Style says, everyone cried about Pat McAfee putting up a fight versus Gunther. How is Zach going 50-50 with Ricochet any better? Well, Ricochet is no Gunther. Gunther's this true badass, world title level guy. Ricochet is the cocky heel who makes high-pitched squeals and takes bumps and all that. I mean, I get the point, but I think they're different enough that the way that story was told in the match was fine. Derek Mitchell said, Zach Gowen versus Ricochet is sympathetic. Is symptomatic, I think it means, of AEW sport booking. I understand it's supposed to make Ricochet look like a jerk, but we know he's a jerk. Stealing Zach Gowen's leg isn't going to garner more heat. I mean, you can make the case that, it is you can come across like you're doing too much just nostalgia. Wouldn't it be cool if, this is your life. This is Tony Khan's life as a wrestling fan. I get to book somebody who I knew in the past. I mean, that does come across that way sometimes, and has a little TNA ring to it too. And TNA was just bringing in guest stars during their weekly pay-per-view startup era. Derek Mitchell said Ricochet is the embodiment of a troll or living meme.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. But Ramen Noodle doubling down on the payday. I think it's cool some guys get a nice payday from a billionaire fanboy every now and then. I don't know why that would offend any fan. It's not my money as long as it's not bad TV. Well, the key is if it's not bad TV, but I mean, it should be judged on whether it's good TV or not the payday. This isn't charity.
I'm not offended by the payday at all.
Yeah.
it's just I didn't like the way they went about it. Like it just felt awkward. But,
Yeah. But giving people a good payday is not justification to use TV time. You should be serving the viewers. If you want to give someone money because you think they need or want or deserve money, just give them money, but don't waste TV time on it. Did this reach the threshold of not being a waste? I think it did, but I understand the criticism, and I think it. Just because I'm okay with it doesn't mean the majority of people watching didn't think, oh, come on, let's get back to the more serious stuff. So yeah, King of Strong Style says it ain't good TV, bro, and Ramen Noodle says this was fine TV in my opinion. So there is the disagreement.
They're probably both right. It wasn't good, but it was fine.
Yeah. Okay, so at the top of the show, we had Osprey and Hangman against Takeshita and Josh Alexander. We kind of know now, Chris, Josh Alexander's role is to be the designated jobber in these matches. We had as we said, sort of the contrived, predictable but contrived, oops, I'm going to assume that was intentional moment. Although I do think Hangman, when he went for the buckshot, and I think it was Alexander who ducked, one of the opponents ducked, and then he wound up again, a second time to go after Osprey. It was that was not an accident. He didn't need to wind up a second time. So if Osprey reviews the footage, he'll see he needed to duck to avoid an intentional attempt. I don't know if that was part of the story or just Hangman just doing it because he needed to can't keep his arm out there. But yeah, I mean, what'd you think of the match and the story told, strengths and weaknesses?
I mean, the match was great. Well, I wouldn't go great, but it was fun. I mean, with those four involved, how could it not be, honestly? Yeah. It's a shame that they have to make Josh Alexander the designated pin taker when Trent Beretta is literally sitting right there. Just let him take the pin. Nobody will care. I'm torn on this because last week I adored that promo segment that those two had. I thought they did a really good job of making sure that both of them stayed face, but both of them had a legitimate reason to not hate each other, but be angry with each other and competitive with each other. And you could tell there was a real rivalry there that wasn't built on burning anyone's house down or anything. They just each wanted to be the best and the one that took the title off Moxley. They didn't need any of this. They really didn't need to do all of this contrived nonsense about you hit me. Why did you hit me? I'm your partner. Dude, literally ducked down in front of you. How do you not see that? Do you not go back and watch your own show? I mean, they may come back next week and say, yeah, he didn't try to do it. It was an accident, but I still don't like him and I still want to kick his rear end. And that's fine. It just, and they did stop short of going into a full-on brawl tonight, at least. They did seem to have some sense talked into them. One thing I did want to pick up on, though, is, and commentary brought this up a couple of times, that Osprey seemed reluctant to tag in and looked like he was almost avoiding Josh Alexander to some degree. And I wonder if they're planting some seeds there. Turning Osprey heel is a bad idea, but I don't think they would accidentally mention that.
Well, Taz did say the strategy should be don't tag out. Let your future opponent take a beating before you face them in the own tournament final. So that might have been more the thing. But yeah, it's a weird thing to draw attention to.
And I think you can not want to tag in without looking like you're reluctant to tag in. You should, if you're going to do that, you should make it look like you're being smart not to tag in, not that you're being timid. It might be nothing. It might be a false flag like Shelton Benjamin dancing behind MVP, but or not MVP, behind MJF. But I thought it was something that could lead to something interesting.
Do you have a prediction, or do you think it should for sure a preference for the Owen men's final?
Oof. I don't think Osprey can afford another big loss. He keeps losing at the final hurdle, and I think if you do it again, his moment when he finally does ascend is going to mean a lot less. I think you have to go with Osprey, and I think he has to beat Moxley for the title.
Yeah. I think Hangman can be fine. I think he's pretty Teflon, and I mean, it isn't. It's not who deserves to win or even who's more over at the moment or who feels more red hot. It's what's the story arc they want to tell. What's the long-term game plan, and that should be. If you have two people as over with the audience and good in the ring and solid as Hangman and Osprey are in so many ways, you can't go wrong, but I think some people will have a preference, and it doesn't mean you can't always call it. You can call an audible if you think, oh, Hangman's red hot. We have this new idea for Osprey. You can augment plans. You can call an audible, but I don't think they should be judged if they don't do your favorite move. Your favorite, don't make your favorite booking decision.
I don't think we can rule out a double pin or a double something, and we end up with your favorite triple threat. That does let them get the title off Moxley without Moxley being pinned as well. The only reason I'm saying this is because in New Japan recently, they had a match with Gabe Kidd and Yota Tsuji where neither of them could afford to lose. And I couldn't understand why they would book the match, and they did a double knockout. So I feel like they could go back to that here. Neither of these people can really afford to lose. I did find it interesting that they specifically focused the camera on Hangman signing a child's shirt today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With his Tron video of him sitting in front of a burning house sipping tea. It's like, if you're trying to change the guy's image, maybe change his video, guys. It's not that difficult. But I think, there is no bad decision. Even the triple threat, I would be okay with. It's not like we have them all the time in AEW, and those three, there's no way that match would be bad. So if that is the way they end up going, I wouldn't hate it. But then who's the Owen Hart Cup winner? Like, who gets the trophy?
Yeah, really. Cut it right down the middle. Couple just small notes. I love Taz joking about Chicago being the home of Beach Break.
Yes.
And he said, well, sometimes it's windy at the beach, and Chicago's known as a windy city. I always enjoyed Taz's kind of deadpan sense of humor. And I don't know where Taz was when they ran a show in Minneapolis and called it Quake by the Lake, because Target Center is next to the river, sort of, but it's not really near a lake. Yes, Minnesota has 10,000 lakes, and we don't have earthquakes. So where was Taz to connect the dots and explain that to me? And then there was a awkward moment where Ian Riccaboni, who was on commentary with Excalibur and Taz tonight, Schiavone had other duties during the show, and just sort of mindlessly, Ian just, I don't know if mindless is a word, but Ian just sort of casually asked Callis, for what do we owe this pleasure tonight here, Don? And it was an innocuous thing. And then Don just like dressed down poor Ian and said, I don't know if you follow the product, but for the past 5 years, I always call my wrestlers matches. So, thanks for following at home. And then they cut to Ian Riccaboni, who's just sitting there looking legitimately sort of tense and not reacting at all. So I don't know what to make of it. Maybe Ian gets heat for not following the product closely. I don't know that to be true. If not, even if so, Don shouldn't be calling him out like that. It was an innocuous comment. I get Don going, hey, wait a second, if somebody tunes into this show and they say, oh wait, that's an interesting point, I've never heard that made before, and it's one of the points I make every week, unfortunately, like for a year and a half, it's like, oh, now I know you never listen. So that's kind of what Don was saying to him. I don't know, did you catch that? What did you think?
The first thing I thought was, I guess Don Callis and Kevin Kelly are still really good friends.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's I could see
I
that.
am not reporting that,
right,
aggregators, but
that is your interpretation, your opinion.
They worked together in New Japan for a very long time on the commentary, and we all know the heat between Riccaboni and Kevin Kelly. So,
yeah, oh for sure, no question about it. Okay, let's pivot to MJF and the Hurt Syndicate. I thought they telegraphed needlessly in a low IQ way that they were going to accept MJF because they were so foreboding and, you come to the ring, you better come to the ring, said MVP, because, the whole tone was like, we're going to say no and then beat you up. And Renee's like, what happens if they say no? Like, they're just hitting us over the head with a lead pipe, making us think, oh, for sure, MJF's going to get bad news, which, of course, in pro wrestling means they're going to say yes. And it's a completely needless misdirection, and it just totally gave it away. So I didn't like that. But talk about that if you want, and also the angle itself and where we are, because we got the contract signing. For those who didn't see it or miss, they get a contract signing next week, and MJF wants to use Mark Sterling to look over the contract. I think he can afford better. MJF. We saw MVP's attorney last week, so there's more to come.
Our long national nightmare is over. We finally know what's happening. This whole
Not till
thing,
next week. We got to read the contract.
Well,
Yeah,
I have my
it's not
own
over.
guess about what might happen next week. I have not been a fan of the storyline at all. I know they keep trying to explain it. A lot of people have tried to explain it to me on these post shows. MJF wants the Hurt Syndicate to sort of make sure he can win matches. It still makes no sense to me. And he was so goofy. He looked so ridiculous. He's begging to join the tag team champions right now. This is a former world champion who wants us to believe he's still a strong threat, jumping into somebody's arms, putting their thumb up. I kind of liked the touch of Benjamin visibly setting for a super kick behind him while Bobby was doing the nonsense with his thumb. That was the only thing I enjoyed about it. Tony Khan, once again, proving he should never be on camera because he had 10 seconds to point out where MJF was and he still managed to look like a doofus. I don't know where this is going, but at least we don't have to watch him trying to suck up every week now. And my hope is that next week somebody says, well, hang on, everybody except one person agreed, but we have a new member and they still need to vote. And then Cedric Alexander comes out and gives the thumbs down, and then they beat him up.
Yeah. And the contract could be, MJF, you're in the group, but you are the assistant to us, or you will, whatever the stipulation is, it'll be a demeaning thing. Brendan Goff says, MJF looked like the biggest dork tonight in the chat. Adam Kidd said, I hated the Hurt Syndicate segment. King of Strong Style said, I didn't like this, but a lot of others did. I don't like how it makes MJF look. Yeah. Zack Barber said, MJF is 100% turning on Hurt Syndicate next week. So if MJF's looking like a dork to try to play the, I don't know if subservient is the best word, but like catering to to Hurt Syndicate and making them feel like he respects them and they're his superiors, and it's all to set up a turn on them to heel heat on him, because the fans like the Hurt Syndicate, he can kind of recover from how he's come across here. Because there are times I feel like MJF's goal is to be entertaining more than it is to have this credible integrity and constitution to his character. But if he's plotting, if it's part of a ploy, then that stuff doesn't matter that people are being critical of him for. But it has to land in that way for me to think some damage isn't being done. Sadler version 3 says, I thought MJF looked too goofy. This is a guy that's supposed to be the lead of a faction as a potential AEW champion. And that's, that's the downside is, why he doesn't come across. He has moments of coming across as an alpha. I get going for heel heat by going, I don't like to work hard, but that can be a little too cute for your own good if you want people to think you're a world champion. And so I don't know. Kind of mixed feelings on the execution of it tonight. It was a little too cute, but I don't think we can fully judge till we see all this plays out. But MJF does sort of seem like he's a little. You always think he's up to something, so I think that's a cover story for him coming across as a goof. But they have to land there, where in the end he was outsmarting them by placating their ego and making it seem like he wouldn't act like he was in control.
But even if he does turn on them, what does that do for him? So he's now going to take on a 3-person faction on his own. Is he going to bring in his own group? Where's that coming from? What good does it do somebody who wants to be in the world title picture to feud with the tag team champions? I don't know how this angle turns out that benefits anybody. You're muted.
Hey. Gary, yay, streaks alive. Ramanua says, I also thought this was shit. I'm concerned about this angle. MJF needs to get in the ring. Sadler, or let's see, Andrew WR says, what's worse, MJF bromancing Adam Cole or MJF begging to be the third wheel in a faction?
Adam Cole by a significant margin.
All right. I agree. So far.
Yeah,
there's still time.
No.
There's still time. Sadler version 3 said, him turning on them makes no sense. He had no beef with them before this angle began. So anything else on that, Chris?
Nope.
All right. So we had a super chat from Zach. Thoughts on women in the Anarchy in the Arena? What do you think about the implication being that Marina Shafir and Willow will be in it? They've certainly gotten physical. Willow has beaten up men, but the men haven't beat up Willow. So, they're trying to draw that line. Obviously, anarchy means Willow and Marina can just go wander off in their own realm. So you can get away with it, I would think. That's my answer, Zach. Thanks for the super chat.
Oh, I hate this topic because it's so hard to judge. We've had women in matches like this before, but only ever with other women. I'm sure like GCW or someone has done it. I always feel uncomfortable with intergender wrestling in any way, shape, or form. I mean, if there are women who can handle it, like Marina Shafir and Willow are probably right up there. But the first time I see Powerhouse Hobbs pick Marina Shafir up, I'm going to cringe, and that's all there is to it. That's not what I want to see. Sure, Willow can beat up Wheeler Yuta, and it would be believable, and people would love it. But it can't go the other way. So why do it in the first place? But then the argument is, well, if you exclude them, doesn't that make it look like you think they're too weak? So I don't think you can win, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, another topic. We had Tony Schiavone in the ring with Nigel McGuinness. Danny Garcia comes out. Danny goes, I don't want to hear your apology. And it's like, oh, he's going to hold it against Nigel. He goes, no, because you don't need to apologize. You did what you should. Team with me against FTR. Stokely came out, said FTR weren't there. FTR were there. They attacked Nigel and Garcia. That's a little dated reference. Maybe it's timeless. Stokely calling Nigel the Al Bundy of AEW, trying to relive his glory days. Then he had the it's a shoot brother comment of how can you beat FTR when you barely beat hepatitis? And that's when FTR attacked. Daddy Magic comes out for the save. This was a collision, largely a collision-based feud, but they're doing enough on Dynamite to enter it in the ecosystem when it lands on the radar in future shows. What did you think, Chris?
I've really enjoyed this. I like using FTR as a way to sort of bring Nigel back into the ring somewhat. I wish FTR were more involved in bigger things, but maybe they have a reason for this. Garcia needs something to make him feel important right now. Remember when he was the TNT champion? I know who the TNT champion is right now because that's how my brain works, but we haven't seen it defended for ages. But I think this is working well. Daniel, his delivery still needs some work, but I thought his promo, the material was good. It wasn't badly delivered. Nigel played his part really well, as you would expect. Even Tony Schiavone added to this segment. We all knew that FTR was going to come out and beat him up as soon as Stokely said they weren't there. Stokely did a good job here. Yeah, overall, I thought this was good. It's not, setting the world on fire or anything, but the match will be enjoyable. And if it develops into something from there, great.
Yeah. Yep. What did you think of the inclusion of Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara and the ROH belts that they had? And then Action Andretti and Leo Rush coming out, and that set up a match on Collision, which leads to the winner getting a title shot. Did that work for you? Because it's always weird when anybody from ROH shows up. Sammy Guevara was a pillar. Then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, here he is. He's teaming with Dustin. For those of you, those of you who aren't among the dozens who watch ROH or follow it.
The whole segment was a roller coaster for me because it started off, I thought, pretty well. I thought Top Flight cut a reasonable promo backstage, even if you could tell that Darius was visibly shaking. He was so nervous. It didn't really come across in his delivery. I thought, I know how you feel about yelling promos, and generally I do too. But I thought Dante had justification for yelling at his section, and it didn't come across as screaming for the sake of screaming. He had a reason to be angry, delivered it well. Yeah. But then you have the match. I really want to like Top Flight, but everything they do looks like it barely works. But they always look like a millimeter away from disaster, which is probably why they both had serious injuries recently. The tag team match itself didn't feel like a tag team match. It felt like a tornado tag because everybody was in the ring the whole time.
Yeah.
But what really killed me, excuse me, at the end, Dustin came out. Dustin should not have been anywhere near this. I don't know why he was in ring gear while Sammy looked like he'd borrowed something from Jim Cornette's wardrobe. You have Dustin come out and say, pick on someone your own size. So now we've simultaneously buried Top Flight and made you believe that Dustin cannot see 2 feet to his left where there is a small child.
Yep.
So the whole thing just went downhill from there. The best part of the angle was that Leah Rush has apparently taught Action Andretti how to talk, because I thought Action Andretti was really good on the mic and their delivery was enjoyable. I still don't think they're a reasonable tag team, and they certainly don't fit the description of pick on someone your own size.
No.
Hurt Syndicate as a team is a hard one because they're impressive to watch and they throw people around, but all of your other tag teams are made up of small people and none of them will believably beat Hurt Syndicate. So, there was some good in it. There was some bad in it. I enjoyed some parts of it, but the Dustin Rhodes part just... Are they going to unify the titles? I don't think so.
That's the thing. Like, if you look at these belts, you know what we want. It's like, well, you're already champion, and why? Where do those? Can you tell us in canon of Dynamite why those titles exist, and where did you come from, and how can we watch you? Like, they never plug ROH.
He's carrying 2 belts. They didn't even mention what the other belt was.
I know. Yeah, it's just it's such a.
Do you know what we want? To be relevant on television, maybe? Like, is that what you want? Because you ain't.
Yep.
Yeah,
God, I agree.
Frustrating.
It is. All right, couple emails and then we'll wrap up. Andrew from Ajax, Ontario says, "Hey, Wade, while I enjoyed this week's Dynamite as a whole, the cage match didn't really follow the narrative structure of a cage match. There are no rules, right? Maybe I've been misled all these years. So why was Joe forced to release a crossface with a rope break while the briefcase to the head was okay?" He sent that before we made the comment on the show. I mean, it did not, and the chat was saying it before I brought it up, and it was in my written report. I knew, that jumped out to me as a weird thing. So, when people go, "Oh, you're nitpicking," I mean, maybe the audience of people who care about that find this show, and the people who don't care don't listen. I mean, you can make that argument, but come on. I mean, it's just, let's clean that stuff up. And Joe and Mox should be better than that. I mean, just, you don't need the rope break in the match to make the match work. So don't do it. You can use the rope to pull yourself to safety to force a break. You don't need the ref to be involved. So, yeah. All right, JB in Detroit has some topics. I like the story threaded throughout that Osprey and the Osprey Hangman tag match. Was that the only way which they could overcome Takeshita and Alexander was by working together? Simple but effective storytelling. Yeah, I mean, they tried to weave that in. And they just they told us that on commentary. Like, it's a Sami CM Punk thing. We might have our own aspirations, but we got to work together to stomp out a force that can oppose us. And it's a timeless universal story, and they hit those beats.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think the commentary in that match actually was really good. Particularly enjoyed Riccaboni talking about every time they've won a match they use that move and stuff like that, like giving you some important little tidbits that really added some gravity to the match.
Yep. Number 2, he said AEW did a great job tonight promoting and giving appropriate context to the Joe Mox main event steel cage match. I disagree. I think they did a solid job. I think great is an overstatement. They had the video package at the beginning, so that was good. I think they needed to plug it more often. I think when you have a world title match headlining a show, it's a world title match. If you have a cage match headlining a show, that should be a bigger deal than a typical main event. When you have your first AEW world title match in a cage, exponentially, you need to treat that as a bigger deal than just a typical main event. And the video package is a positive, and it was there and was early in the show. I would have sprinkled that in throughout the matches. I would have talked more about, hey, I know this is, this women's match is important. There's a lot at stake here. But I just want to remind fans, because I can't stop thinking about it. In a few minutes, we're going to see Samoa Joe against Moxley in a cage, and have Taz go, "Hey, get back, focus on this match." And then Excalibur or, Riccaboni can go, "Oh, no, I know I am." Like, but you want to convey like something extra special is happening later. And I want to hear from Joe and I want to hear from Mox. I really believe we should hear from wrestlers before main event matches, almost always, or at least a lot of the time, and certainly with rare exception going into a world title match, Chris.
Yeah. I think what they could have done is had, say, Hobbs or someone come out and talk for Joe, saying he's focused, he can't talk to you right now. But
locker room.
He's doing this. Yeah.
Lacing up your boots, leave me alone. Yeah.
Do something. And they could have split that video package up and showed it in segments if they only had one done. Like, there's a lot they could have done. Like you said, it's a big deal. Make it feel like one.
Yep. And by the way, remind people of Joe's title reign. Talk about Mox, like have facts on the screen coming out of commercials, just 3 seconds. an image. Samoa Joe, last time was a world champ. Here's some stats. Moxley, this is how long he's been champ. The history of those, things that really build up Joe and build up Mox. But you can tell booking reveals itself because this match wasn't about the match. It was about the angle afterwards. So the booking reveals itself in how they hyped it and how they built it. They didn't think the match was a big deal. The match was just there to fill time until they could do the angle to set up Anarchy. Ramen Noodle likes your idea. Hobbs coming out to talk for Joe would have been great. I like that idea. Dougie Doug says, it's strange how ROH is literally never mentioned.
They have been better about that recently.
Yeah. Zack Barber says, Dustin 3 belts. LOL. All right. Number 3, Zach Gowen. Then back to JB's email. Zach Gowen in an AEW ring in 2025 wasn't on my bingo card, but here we are. I did like the story they told with Ricochet being the bully while parading around Gowen's prosthetic leg with Gowen's family at ringside. I have Anthony Bone in my head. I can't say Gowen properly. It did a lot for Ricochet's heel persona, as you're not going to find a more natural babyface than Zach. I'll just say Zach. So anyway, we covered that. Number 4, I like Renee asking MJF if he has considered what Hurt Syndicate would do to him if he weren't accepted into the group. That type of intelligent question helps the audience respect the interviewer and makes us consider the possibility as well. MJF's surprised and concerned reaction lets the viewer know, due to his arrogance, he hadn't thought about it. I like that too. We didn't bring that up, so good job, JB. Number 5, Hurt Syndicate needs real competition. CRU and or Dustin and Sammy isn't going to cut it. It is a little sad that's going into a pay-per-view, what we have to work with in this company.
I mean, who are the choices, though, right? Like Cage and Archer. Cage is hurt. Yep. Big Bill's disappeared. We don't know what's going on with him, but he could come with a partner.
They announced him for a match on Collision, but I mean,
he hasn't been around, though.
I know.
And really, the only other tag team is FTR. There aren't any big boy teams. Like, they already dispatched Gates of Agony. I don't know if somebody's going to show up as a challenger, but right now there's a dearth of options. Yeah,
and plan ahead, build some credibility with teams, give them just good, decisive, quick wins, build their personalities. Let's see here. The range of emotions that went across MJF's face as Lashley was making his decision on the final vote was very well done. It ranged from comical to believable. He is clearly a very good actor.
In the wrestling context, yes.
In the pro wrestling actor, yep. Number 7, I like the idea of Mina and Tony at Double or Nothing, but I wish a feud with this much potential had a longer time to build. Also, what were they going to do with Tony at Double or Nothing had she won this Eliminator match? I guess at some point the championship committee decides who the opponent's going to be if somebody doesn't force themselves into the match. But again, that's what Rich and I were talking about on the Everything podcast earlier. We did 2 hours on a wide array of topics today for VIP members, and one of them was just give us a little more structure. I hold AEW to their initial press release. We want to be a sports league, and the idea was we're going to treat it like a sports league, not it was a passive aggressive implication being we're not going to be like WWE. Put that into your rules, put that into your structure. Fans love that. They they want structure and rules and things to make sense. It gives you more that you can speculate on because you know what the rules are. If it's just a free-for-all and it's not explained, you're just sort of passively waiting for things to happen instead of feeling like you can credibly guess.
Yeah, I'm okay with them over the course of 5 years slightly changing an approach, but they are so far off what they initially promised that it doesn't even bear a resemblance anymore.
Yeah, even without the press release, I'd do it. But I point that out going, it's not like I want them to be something they didn't declare themselves to be. But yeah, you can stray from that over 7 years.
Yeah.
I like the why was Tony Schiavone not in the booth tonight? He was obviously in the building. I don't know why they had Ian on commentary instead of Tony for the whole show. I mean, I like the idea of Tony just doing Collision. I think 4 hours of Tony is more than we need. Ian. I mean, no, and I don't even mean that in a negative sense. I just think I don't like Michael Cole doing both Raw and SmackDown either. I just think you want each show to have its own identity.
I mean, I don't like Michael Cole right now. I'm just curious. Is Ian Riccaboni from Chicago?
I'm not sure where he's based. I don't.
Oh no, he's from Pennsylvania. He's from.
Yeah, I was gonna not guess it wasn't Chicago. I think I would have known that. Yeah.
No, I'm not sure. Maybe they just wanted to rotate through for a little bit.
Yeah. All right. As soon as MJF mentioned Mark Sterling reviewing his contract with Hurt Syndicate, my immediately thought was that instead of the Hurt Syndicate turning on MJF's going to debut his own faction to take them out, or that this has been a swerve and Cedric Alexander shows up next week as a third member of the Syndicate to beat down MJF. I mean, I think the offer is there. I think the idea is, because Lashley's smiling and laughing at MJF this whole time. Like, you know he's up to something. or has something in mind or knows something and he can't hide it. So it does seem like that contract is going to be something that offends MJF and leads to the next chapter. There's so many ways that can go. I don't think we need to nail down the one right way because I don't think there is. So I think there's a lot of directions it could go. And I don't know if Cedric's going to show up or not. I mean, I don't think we should bank everything on that being a thing just because it's non-compete expired. I do think that Gabe Kidd could be a good fit for the Death Riders. Is Kidd going to replace an injured Pac in the Death Riders in their quest to regain their trios titles from the Ops? Ooh, wouldn't that be great? Gabe Kidd in a trios division. Will he also be the assumed Anarchy in the Arena match at Double or Nothing? Chris?
Probably, yes, on the second one. Funnily enough, Gabe Kidd just had a shot at the New Japan six-man titles, which they lost. So there's a chance he could be doing that. I'm not convinced he's going to stay in the Death Riders. We'll see how that turns out.
Yep. It was a positive sign that Okada got legitimately booed when he cheap shotted Omega tonight. Yeah, I mean, there's certain people Okada will get booed against. But if he says bitch, they'll cheer him instantly. So the question is, it's like Seth's music. Do you want a reaction or do you want to be over and help your babyface opponents by sacrificing a little to help them get the proper prescribed reaction? All right, number 12, and this is the final point. I hate when a guy jumps from a high spot and doesn't even touch a majority of the wrestlers in the pile he jumps on, only to have literally everyone fall down like bowling pins around him. All that being said, Swerve remains incredibly over with the crowd, possibly more so than anyone in the company. As always, love the show and go VIP. Yeah, the chat commented on how top-heavy in a good way the singles division is for AEW, and there's going to be an ebb and flow. I think they should work on the tag division, make it feel more prestigious. Speaking of, an initial mission statement. But it is an embarrassment of riches in terms of top-tier babyfaces right now.
Yeah, I think the argument of who the most over babyface is could be quite a passionate one because you have Swerve, you have Osprey, and you have Hangman who all get massive reactions, which is a great problem to have, except for the fact that none of them is actually anywhere near the world title. Well, they hadn't been until the Owen. Yeah. So at some point, one of them is going to have to get somewhere. And don't forget Darby Allin, once he comes back down the mountain, if he comes back down the mountain at any point in the near future, is going to slot right into that group as well. So there's a lot of big faces, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of them ends up heel soon.
Chris, tell people about your VIP podcast.
Yeah, so Kelly and I do the 7-Star podcast talking about New Japan and what's going on there. Because of the nature of New Japan's touring schedule, it's not a regular weekly thing or anything like that because they just sometimes don't have anything going on. But we will try and cover the major events. And I hadn't actually worked with Kelly before we started doing this podcast, but we instantly had a connection there. We're apparently very similar human beings. So that
I'm not surprised yet.
I have a standing invitation if I ever make it out to the Twin Cities. So you have been.
It wasn't going to come. It wasn't going to come for me. So I'm glad Kelly did.
Listen, that's fine, and I'm sure plenty of other people will be happy to hang out when I get there. The one thing we didn't hit on.
Kelly and I bump into each other. Both of our kids are like in plays together at the same high school, and we bump into each other there, and we go to Timberwolves games and stuff. So there's a decent chance. If Kelly, if you're okay for Kelly, maybe I'll change my mind.
Well, we'll see. Well, I mean, maybe I don't want to hang out with you.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
The one thing we didn't touch on was the women's fatal four-way, and the main reason I wanted to touch on that was the hilarity of Mina's music and what happened with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw this, but when she came out, she had new music, and when she won the match, it was back to her old music. And Tony Khan has confirmed on X he pulled the trigger on the new music mid-show because of the backlash he got from it. It was awful. It started off with Yokozuna's old theme, and it sounded so stereotypically Japanese and dated, and they just instantly just cut it and went back to the old music, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh boy! Well, you know what? Hey, it's like the Scissor Sisters, the Pointer Sisters. Yeah, Scissor Sisters, good band. Dumping the that music after 1 week. It took them a while to get new music. Do you like the new entrance theme?
It's fine. It's a big improvement over what they were using. Not my favorite song, but I can't argue with it.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, very good. Chris, thanks.
Yeah,
great having you on the show. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you all next time. Check out the flagship. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app. Jason Paul and I had a blast. Go VIP to hear earlier today. Rich Van and I spent over 2 hours talking about a lot of different topics in the news, including social media, recovering from Achilles tendons bursts that Rich has been going through, ruptures, I should say, and lots of good stuff. So yeah, go VIP. But if you're not, check out the free flagship. Search Wade Keller and subscribe to the Blue Logo Show. Jason and I had a blast talking about a lot of topics leading into and coming out of a busy WrestleMania and Backlash season and heading into AEW with a busy stretch ahead. Chris, we'll talk to you next time. And again, have a good night, everybody.